Hey, folks, and welcome back to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. Good afternoon, Adrian.
Hey, Glenn. How you doing?
Doing well. I'm looking forward to seeing these Frank Zappa clips in the midst of the PMRC controversy. We watched Frank Zappa slap down a PTA, and out in California, it's very interesting. And then he has an appearance on AM Philadelphia we're also going to take a look at. So with that, I think we're just going to roll right into the first one, which, as I said, is a PTA in 1985 in California. And as you will see, the styles are pretty funny, but so are the arguments. Yep. All right, so debate on school beat. I'm sure we're in for a treat here.
Good evening. Day and night, American youth are enticed by electronic visions of a world so violent, sensual, and narcotic that childhood itself appears to be under siege. The images portrayed to the young through records, TV, videos, and films are so provocative. The parents are in an uproar, psychologists are warning of dire consequences, and entertainment producers are fearful of threats to free speech and nationwide record boycotts. Public pressure has already forced the $4.3 billion a year recording industry to voluntarily slap parental guidance stickers on records and tapes. The conflict
under
over
duress
civil entertainment for 66 million Americans under the age of 19 engages politicians, senators' wives, parents, and major rock stars. Tonight on School Beat, we'll examine that conflict with Frank Zappa, an outspoken opponent to any form of abridgment of First Amendment rights, Jim Hodson, producer of Real Videos, and Norma Downs, Communications Commissioner of the California State PTA. Stay tuned as School Beat debates the crusade launched against porn lyrics that is forcing a showdown with the record industry. We'll be right back after the break.
That is really some wild hair.
Porn lyrics.
Yeah.
Censorship. I'd like to read to you some lyrics from Darling Nikki. I know a girl named Nikki. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby masturbating with a magazine. She said, how'd you like to waste some time? And I could not resist when I saw Little Nikki Grind, or from Prince's album, Oral Sex and Incest. My sister never made love with anyone but me. Incest is everything it's said to be. Is that pornography?
Is it necessary?
Okay, hold on a second here. Is it necessary? We haven't even seen Frank yet, and I have questions. What lyric is necessary ever? No, I see what she's saying. No, I don't. All right.
No. Not really.
Is a word that is very hard to define in someone's mind. It's pornography. It's not in good taste. It's not necessary.
Justice Potter said he knew it when he saw it.
Maybe.
Is that true?
I don't know that you even have to see it. Hearing it is it's not a good feeling that comes with hearing something like that. And kids develop their patterns of living by everything that they see and hear and feel, and it would seem that this would be pretty confusing.
Is it confusing, Frank?
Well, when you consider that masturbation is a practice that has been going on since the beginning of time, from cradle to grave, I don't see why it makes any difference if Prince sings about it. The idea that hearing the lyric to a song is
National Treasurer. Wait a second. National Treasurer.
Wow.
I think I heard this story. I think that for a joke, he told them that he wanted to be called a national treasure. And so I guess they didn't get the joke and they didn't understand what he said. And so he's the national treasurer. Anyway, let's continue.
Is going to corrupt you, that is going to send you to hell, that is going to turn you into a social liability, is not backed up by any kind of scientific data. It's stupid.
And you would not be in favor of any kind of censorship of rock lyrics or censorship thereof?
I'm not in favor of censorship of any description.
Well, censorship is not what we're talking about, though.
Well, yes, we are.
Yes, it is.
We're talking about the possible censorship of rock videos, of rock lyrics, and the movement that is in Washington to bring about that censorship in order to take lyrics, such as I've just read to you, off the air.
Let's see. Yeah, it's not really censorship. It's more stigmatization with a little sticker that you put on the record, which, as it turns out, kind of helps sell the record.
Unintended
consequence of this legislation, or whatever you want to call it.
Very good point, Adrian.
Am I not discussing this correctly? Am I not
Well,
stating the
your
case?
opening statement that's setting up the show is the same kind of confusing stupidity that has been attendant to this issue since the ladies went into business May 14th, 1985.
How do you define it then?
Well, first of all, you should be real specific. If we're talking about words, don't stick the videos in there. Don't spread it out like a cow flop across the whole spectrum of human entertainment experience. When I say they, the PMRC has created the illusion that a connection between lyrics to a song and strange social behavior is something that has to be pinned on people in a specific industry. And then they talk about videos and films and stuff on the sideline to emphasize this pornographic aspect. And it's a con job. It is simply not real.
I'm going to stop right there before the PTA lady comes back. You know, everything he just said has proven itself to be correct.
Right.
The one thing about these clips, they're very entertaining. They're pretty amusing usually. This one's pretty staid so far, which is fine. But Frank has a brilliant mind. He's right up there with George Carlin in terms of being able to look at something and make a social commentary out of it. With that in mind, let's see what Norma from the PTA has to say.
MTV uses the combinations of videos and the rock lyric music.
My mistake.
Yeah, but videos are different from song lyrics, though.
That's true. Yeah, that's
You're talking about two different industries. They're kind of connected in that, you know, the videos have music on them.
Right. Right.
The videos are not the same as what's on the album.
That's right. As a matter of fact, they'll often use concepts for the video that have absolutely nothing to do with the music for it. You know, so, and that's normal. You know, there's a lot of fantasy in those videos that has nothing to do with anything in the songs. So it is true. I mean, he's made a very valid point that here they are presenting it as this big, cow flop, as he said. You know, they're spreading it out as this big deal when it's really just the words. And then you have to look at why the words are problematic. You know, I think I heard him point out in one of these shows that sugar walls. What kid is going to know what sugar walls means?
Right.
You know, it's like you got to contextualize these things. It's pretty tame, especially compared to what came later. So I don't think the labels did much good. But anyway,
well, they did. They did a lot of good. They sold a lot of records.
Okay, fair point. All right, let's continue.
That's another issue, though. The original issue was words. We're talking about words.
Let's go to words.
And words are visible in the songs, too. I mean, it's just visual music.
Yeah, but I'm talking about specifically what the PMRC did in their campaign. They started the scare campaign that words will make you do bad things, okay? And then got on television for two reasons. One, because videos existed. You could take a video and you could cut up pictorial videos and make a nice little bumper to start your news story off, and then the announcer would say, look at this, you decide whether the words are going to hurt you. But it's always, look at this, now decide about the words. If there weren't any videos to dramatize it for television, they wouldn't have gotten the kind of coverage on the nightly news that they got.
I sort of disagree with that statement only because I think that the PTA, and I'm not going to state the case for them, has been on this issue for many, many years. In my opinion, it got the coverage that it did because you had a couple of senators' wives involved.
I don't know that today's PTA worries about song lyrics. I haven't heard any specific concerns about this issue in recent years. So, for what that's worth, okay, to continue.
I was going to say that's another reason why they got coverage, but it wouldn't have been as extensive if the news itself hadn't have been pictorial. Of course, they would have gotten on the news because they're senators' wives.
Yes.
Okay, that's obvious. But the reason it got so much exposure on the media is because it sells deodorant. It's a catchy, flashy little news story. You can stick it in every 5 o'clock news and look at this, now you decide. And it's a joke.
Jim, how do you see the issue?
Well, I think that's kind of a smokescreen because, I mean, even if it's visual or not, the lyrics speak for themselves. I mean, that's like the quote you mentioned. I don't want to listen to that kind of stuff. And I think he has the right to say it.
Okay, Jim, I'm sorry to inform you of this.
I think lyrics are open to interpretation by their very nature.
Yeah. Well, I'm just reacting that Jim here seems to be, maybe he's got a gun to his head and he's got to go to the record store now and pick up that Metallica album or whatever. We're forcing him to go buy a Twisted Sister album, Adrian.
Yeah.
I don't know.
With his money, he's got to buy it and everything.
Anyway, no, Jim, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to listen to it.
It scares me that he would, and that people would produce it as a record company, and then people would buy it too, and it would get airplay. It gets radio airplay.
But if we were to put labels on record albums, wouldn't that indeed stifle creativity? Wouldn't that indeed make a whole different music industry than the one that we have?
I think it would change it a little bit. Once again, the precedent would be motion pictures. Producers purposely make films to be rated R because they make more money. And the record industry tends to say, well, no one will buy them if they're rated R, but I think it's just the opposite. If you rate a record R, say this is bad, people will automatically want it more. And it's just a sad statement on society today. But
I'm trying to parse what Jim's point is here because he seems to flip back and forth.
Yeah, I know.
Very confusing. So he's scared because somebody's going to force him to buy the music or listen to the music. Okay, well, once we tell him that, I think he's still going to be scared. I'm not sure why. And then he said there's something about, the movie ratings, but then, well, the rating isn't actually going to work anyway. It's going to make the kids want to buy the record more. Okay.
Exactly.
So if they're going to want to buy the record more, what are they doing trying to turn it into this big thing where we need a label? Doesn't that seem silly? Because only more kids will listen, right? That's what he's telling us. All right.
And then the problem will get worse in their opinions.
So, yeah, I think on some level he gets it, but he just doesn't want to get it. If you know what I mean. Okay. Anyway, here we go.
Well, would you rate some of the lyrics that I read and some of the others that I didn't rate? Would you rate them R? Would you rate them X? Would you rate them at all?
Well, if there was a rating system, they would be rated R and X. But I think the answer is to have the lyrics printed on the outside of the albums, kind of like
that was Frank's idea.
If you want to know what's inside, you read the label and see the ingredients. Because if I want to eat healthfully, I want to know what I'm eating before I buy it.
Well, Frank, during the PMRC hearings, Frank Zappa actually proposed this idea of having the lyrics, I think, printed on a separate piece of paper that would be included in the album package. Mm-hmm. And you could easily fit a lyric sheet, in the shrink wrap. This way, the album art wouldn't even be affected because the lyric sheet would be separate. Mm-hmm. But, it would be visible. So people could peruse it and decide. Yeah,
I kind of wonder if he suggested paying for that with the money that came from the cassette tape tax, because
it's possible.
That's the thing, is that somebody's got to pay to make that happen. So who's paying for that? And, are there extra rights that have to be paid out because you've printed the lyrics? It's quite possible. I'm actually not sure about that. If the lyrics are printed on an album, if you end up owing more money to the writer, sure, it depends deal to deal, but that sounds like something.
The money's got to go to the creator of the content.
Yeah, but they would get it anyway for the actual record itself. The sound recording. But yeah, I don't know. That's something I'm going to have to look up so we can talk about it in the future. Let's move on here.
Would you object to that, Frank?
Well, here's what the problem is. First of all, you're still confusing the issue because the agreement has already been reached and it does not include a rating system. There's no R, no X, no G, no PG. The agreement reached on November 1st, according to the Associated Press Wire report, says the record industry and the PMRC and the PTA have come to an agreement. Here's what the agreement contains. That the parents' groups will have no control over saying what is explicit. Gordikoff said, what's explicit is explicit. The agreement also states that the record industry will make the decision as to what gets the warning. The warning says this: explicit lyrics, parental advisory. There's no RPG or anything like that. That's all it is. Furthermore, it states that any artist who has contractual control over his album packaging is free to ignore the understanding. So that means he doesn't have to stick it on there if he wants. Basically, what has been agreed to is face-saving PR. The record industry did the PMRC and the PTA a big favor by agreeing to this non-binding nothingness so that the ladies could look like they accomplished something. Basically, they have accomplished nothing except to confuse the American public with this. And it's continuing here. You're still talking about R, PG, and the rest of this stuff. It didn't happen.
All right, he's just accused you of nothingness now.
Would you rather have legislation then?
I think that that's a bit of redirecting the focus away from what he just. So this is great. He's right on top of his shit, and everybody else is kind of scrambling. And
No, I'll fight it all. You know, but the fact of the matter is, what occurred at that press conference was a scam, and the Los Angeles Times left out the 2 lines from the Associated Press law report that tells you that nothing really happened.
Well, but it is happening. Every time a parent picks up a record that has the lyrics printed on it, that parent has the privilege then and the right to refuse a young child having that record in the home. As the children get older, sure, they're going to make up their own minds about what they buy, but by this time, they will have recognized what the parents' values are and hopefully go along with them.
Frank, you talk about this, thank you, you talk about this as being a scam.
It is a scam.
And I think that what Norm was trying to say is that if...
when the host has to jump in and try to reframe what your opposing opinion just said to you, that's usually not a good sign.
the scam, so to speak, is not accepted, then stronger methods will be used, things that would probably be even much less acceptable.
Well, that too would be a
stating your
scam.
case?
First of all, the legislation was recommended by Senator Hollins. The legislation that he recommended, and that a girl named Cheryl Wallace in his office was drafting, a bill that would require lyrics to be placed on the back of an album. I called his office. I explained to her, since she was writing the bill, that there is no statutory rate for the privilege of publishing lyrics on the back of an album. There's no industry established fee, because you can't demand that somebody who wrote words gives up his rights to exploitation and they go on the back of the album.
Okay. Frank just answered my question. So it's a sticky legal issue too. It's just amazing the hoops they're trying to put people through. Anyway, here we go.
Yeah.
And so I researched it because I recommended that at the Senate hearing. I said, if you had to choose between a third party deciding what does it contain and rating it, or somebody reading the lyrics, obviously it would be better for the person to read the lyrics and make up their own mind. I recommended it at that time, but I also stated that whoever has written those lyrics needs to be paid for it. They're not always owned by the record company or by the person who's singing the record. Those are owned by third and fourth parties.
Thank you very much. I just have to interrupt for 1 second. We'll be right back after the break, and we'll discuss more about porn lyrics. Stay
What do you think they talk about in between the breaks?
I don't know.
issue of porn rock lyrics. Jim, what does that kind of music do to kids, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is very dangerous.
Well, Jim, just how dangerous is this? What kind of horrible...
The panel seems to have their minds made up already.
Kind of, yeah.
About their position.
What horrible fate to call the children of the nation. Anyway.
What does that kind of music do to kids, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is very dangerous.
Gaslighting.
Like Frank was saying, there's no scientific data about
Exactly.
what really happens. But on our show, we play music videos by artists who are Christians, so we have the opposite side. We get a lot of letters from people who say, "Hey, my life has really been affected by the negative aspects of these lyrics, and now my life has been changed because of what these Christian artists are saying." A girl wrote to me saying, "Hey, I saw a video on your show that changed my life. She was being pressured into having sex with her boyfriend, and she changed her mind because of a video we played."
I mean, that's great. Is she decided, you know what? I have a choice. I don't have to listen to this stuff that I find uncomfortable. I don't have to listen to Prince. I like these contemporary Christian artists. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. And she's, it's helping her through her life. That's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's exactly how it's supposed to work. So let's see where this happy story takes a turn here with Jim. Let me see what he has to say.
A murderer, Richard Ramirez, to kill people.
Okay. He's comparing it now to the Aussie thing.
Used by a murderer, Richard Ramirez.
No, it was Richard Ramirez, I think.
It was the murder, the night
Yeah, he's the
Stalker.
guy who he was a serial killer in California who listened to AC/DC, and
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah,
somebody suggested that AC/DC made him commit these murders or something.
yeah.
Really
It was supposed
like
to.
that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the song "Night Prowler."
Oh,
Yeah, I remember that now. So now he's decided, well, see, now this contemporary Christian did such a great thing for my listener, which is a beautiful thing. We have no problem with that. In fact, we love it.
right.
And then he goes, but then look at what happens here with the murderer deciding to listen to AC/DC. And there's no way he would have murdered anybody if he hadn't just listened to AC/DC.
Changed because of what Christian artists are saying. A girl wrote to me saying, hey, I saw a video on your show that changed my life. She was being pressured into having sex with her boyfriend, and she changed her mind because of a video we played. Music is like a knife. It can be used by a murderer, Richard Ramirez, to kill people, or it can be used by a surgeon to heal people. And
Oh, I see. He didn't even bother getting into the story. He just got in his little jab, if you will.
Yeah.
Nice. See, that's dirty pool there. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, also, it's just the, I mean, yeah, I think about the unfortunate thing, the girl being pressured to have sex with her boyfriend or whatever. But how is that? How is the music industry involved in that? That's a societal problem.
Yeah.
explicit lyrics, that's kind of the minority. I think the real danger is in the vast majority of lyrics that are just slightly off center. Things like Madonna saying, get into the groove, you got to prove your love to me, things like that don't sound really obscene, but they have even a greater negative impact because they're subtle.
Okay, so Jim here, the world of the music, according to Jim, would be, well, I would imagine 100% contemporary Christian, with perhaps a little classical. I don't know, something, but none of that crazy stuff. No Orff, no Mussorgsky, no Stravinsky, Bach.
Is there any real chance in today's world that we're going to change the music that's played, or the music in a sense that's bought by the young people?
No, I'm an optimist, but I think our society is that way, and the artists are reflecting that, and they're trying to be more shocking, and therefore they push back the limits and make it the standard. I think the responsibility is with the record companies to say, hey, shape up here.
But then, Frank, wouldn't you have control by the record companies of the artists if indeed you took that policy?
First of all, you have control of the record companies by the artists now. The control is called the dollar. The artist doesn't get signed unless the record company thinks they can make money. The record company is a bank. They advance the money to make the album. If there's a sufficient amount of pressure on the record company to behave in a certain way, you're going to have conflicts in the executive suite where a guy will decide, I know if I sign this group and we let them do what they normally do, that we're going to sell a certain amount of records. Or if I don't sign that kind of a group and sign only Christian rock, which will appease only these Christians who are very upset about this thing, that we're probably going to sell plenty of records of a Christian rock nature to a Christian rock audience, and everything should be that way, you're going to have those kind of mental conflicts in the executive suite.
So the judgment call cannot be made, in other words, by record companies, record producers, or artists. In other words, you're saying that judgment call is made by the dollar.
That is the ultimate call. If they think they can make more money by recording only Christian rock, which is not well defined yet as an art form or even acceptable to some people from the Christian perspective, if you know about Freedom Village in Lakemont, New York, a detox center where parents send children to be cured of rock addiction, run by Pastor Fletcher A. Brothers.
We're going to have to look into that one.
Their information.
Oh, yeah.
In the place. He sent me a list of about this long of all of the offending artists. He calls it all murder music. And, bold-faced capital letters. Some of the people on his list include Stevie Wonder. And the reason he's on there is because he has something about astrology in his album. John Denver is on there because he went through Est.
Okay, so I think that the point here is very clear, is that, first of all, you would end up with Christian rock everywhere. Not everybody's going to listen to Christian rock. The almighty dollar dictates you will end up with nothing except for a very small audience that maybe you would have had anyway. So who are the extremists in this show? That's it's pretty clear to me, but they're being framed as the normal people, as the, this is what middle America wants. Well, is it? I don't think so. I think AC/DC did pretty well in the Midwest.
Yeah, that whole thing with the detox for rock music. I mean, to me, that kind of thinking a little too much into this or whatever, it kind of strikes me as child abuse.
Yeah,
possibly.
It's right up there with, deprogramming the gay, or things like that, just things that don't work and cause a lot of damage. And yeah, this would count for sure. As we see, Frank is being framed as the lunatic. However, he's the one that's making sense. He knows what he's talking about. You can check everything he says, and it's correct. Vis-a-vis Jim there, who he couldn't give us a good explanation of where he really stood on everything, aside from turning everything Christian. And then Norma, who had to be recycled through the host afterwards, and that's the last thing she ever said. We haven't heard from her since. So I don't know. It's nice to see this in retrospect, but back then, this was a real battle.
Boy George is on there because not only does he want to be neither male nor female, but it claims that his albums promote Hinduism. So you have if you're going to just go purely Christian here, you're going to have to deal with the Christian extremes too.
Okay, androgyny.
That's right.
Still a major issue today, as it turns out.
So a record company executive is going to say, if I must appease to the Christian contingent who want no sex and only certain points of view, which of these strange points of view do I deal with? How can he make that call? Ultimately, he's going to go, I'm selling millions of records right now with Prince just the way he is. I'm leaving it. You don't think they're going to make Prince change Darling Nikki in the next record?
No, I don't think they're going to make Prince change anything in the next record. That's really not the issue. I suppose the issue is this type of music harmful to kids? If so, who has control over the music? And is it the parental responsibility to make sure that the kids do or do not listen? That's really how I see it.
I would say yes. Situation. First of all, there's no documentation that proves that hearing a word turns you into a social liability. You may have feelings about it. You may consider it a matter of taste. But unless there is scientific evidence that says if a person hears a song about masturbation, it's all over. When somebody proves that, then you've got a reason to cry, alarm, alarm. We must change the industry to accommodate this point of view. But until that happens, I think it is people with concerns, which are valid, but not necessarily huge enough that we have to occupy the media and the government with the matter of Prince's lyrics because he wants to sing about somebody for the magazine.
Norma? Would that sound like a great lead-in?
Boy, they sure looked uncomfortable when he said masturbation, didn't they? So.
Would that sound like a great lead-in?
That's a little, yeah.
Norma's going to faint.
I think my point of view comes from the point of view of all kids. And it's not.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
No way.
I'm calling the baloney on that one. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Poor Norma. Oh, boy.
Only the kids who have good rapport with their parents who will talk about these things, but it's a youngster who will listen to this kind of thing and think that that's the way of the world.
But I think Frank's point of view is that maybe that hasn't been proven.
I would say that it hasn't been proven. I mean, how's the parent going to react? Do you think the kid is going to take note of how the parent reacts if the parent hears the lyric? Or anybody else or their friends or somebody. I mean, they're out in the world. They're going to get a reaction for how they present themselves and whatever music is out there and what they share that with. I mean, so nobody's going to be mistaking that with, well, everybody says that, because you saw how freaked out she was. And frankly, we're talking almost 40 years ago that this is happening. This is 38 years ago. And people's attitudes have changed a lot. But back then, I mean, you couldn't say stuff. You couldn't say half the things you can say today without even thinking about it. I mean, people would just, oh my God, think of the children, and that's what it was back then. And that's so just to give it
assuming that children copy everything that they either listen to or see on TV, which is not true.
Exactly.
Most children know better than, they'll know better than to, for example, they might see on a cartoon somebody pushing a rock off a cliff and then it lands on somebody or something.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
you mean
don't
like
think that would happen in real life. Like Wile E. Coyote or Roadrunner or something.
Yeah. It's funny. You're reminding me of Dee Snider's testimony where he
that's
talked
right.
about getting it from his cartoon collection, his own curated cartoon collection. Which I thought was great. Well, let's continue here.
All right.
That music does not make them think this is about
Well, I don't think you can prove why somebody goes off the deep end and does some of these awful things.
That's true. Consider how many people do listen to these records and how many actually go off the deep end. Somebody's always going to go off the deep end, but how many?
Oh, yeah.
Not many.
That are said in these other violent things, the rape, the incest. If you're going to sing about those things, somebody's going to pick that up as being a way of life.
Well, let me ask you one simple question. A lot has been made about this Night Stalker case, and they said, and PMRC has been very delighted to assist in the public conception. If you hear an AC/DC record album, there's always a possibility that you may be the next Richard Ramirez. I would like to pose this question. Take any number of mass murderers in the United States and ask them what their favorite form of music is. And I bet you're going to find one of them likes Wayne Newton, and another one happens to like some cowboy entertainer. And what are you going to do? Pin it on... if a guy commits a crime, you're going to blame him for the music he listens to, the church he goes to, because that may have an even larger impact on what
I think you can pick every form of media that you hear, and it's going to fit somebody somewhere.
Thoughts on that, Adrian? You can take any media, and it'll hit somebody somehow, somewhere.
If all it takes for somebody to commit some horrendous act is to see, either see a cartoon or a video or something, or to hear a song or whatever, then I don't think the music is the problem.
I think you hit it on the head.
It's a problem with the person, that whoever we're talking about.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Oh, we tell Norma.
But the people who do the horrible things are not doing it just because of music.
Not just because, no, but it's an added factor to an...
No. And Frank's exasperation is fully earned here.
already sick world. And it just doesn't seem
which
that...
came first, the sick world or the music that writes about
which came
that
first,
world?
the chicken or the egg?
No, the sick world came first. And it remains, and it's its own thing. Sometimes, unfortunately, it interacts with the music world. That's not our fault.
It's not the music industry's fault either. It's silly, I think.
Yes.
Blaming the music for...
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a stretch.
The thing is that media itself, I think, has a very definite impact upon people.
Sure, I agree with that, because if you're on the radio or on TV or in films, what you say automatically carries a more authoritative weight just because you're on TV.
Do you see an age, for instance, Jim, where it would be acceptable, in your opinion, for kids to start listening to music that is like I described?
Oh, I don't think that kind of music is acceptable to anyone. I don't.
So it's not about the children, Jim. You just don't like the music. Period.
Right.
Makes you, as an adult, not a child, uncomfortable. And that's your right. There's nothing wrong with that, Jim.
Right.
But why are you imposing that on me and on us, on the world?
Exactly.
Take care of your own crop, Jim. That's what I say. Yeah.
But I mean, isn't there an age of reason that kids come to where they get to choose?
Oh, sure, but
Which I hope they don't choose that.
But I mean, at what age would you?
Who's to decide that?
I couldn't say, because every person is different. I mean,
Frank, do you see that?
Well, I see from his point of view that there is no acceptable age to hear any of that kind of stuff. And if that view pervades, you will have censorship. I want to remind the people who are watching who know anything about the PTA that the PTA subscribes to a code which is First Amendment up and down the line. It has the Free Library Act and all the rest of that stuff. You don't want to take books out of the library because of content. I saw the thing. And the same thing should apply to records, because if you look at what's happening in public libraries, I talked to the Librarians Association maybe 8 years ago, and the trend then was 60% of the new purchases each year for the library were phonograph records. So this library Bill of Rights should apply to
We have no
phonograph
quarrel
records,
at all, PTA-wise, with what is happening right now. We wanted consumer information, and that's what we're getting. And we're really quite content with that.
Wait a minute.
There's a recurring theme in a lot of these talk shows. The main argument is, why should parents get involved and hear the music that their children purchase,
Yeah,
or that the parents purchase for them?
exactly. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't see what the problem is. You remember Al Gore had such a big problem putting Purple Rain on his turntable. He just couldn't. He couldn't even stand to listen to that record. The thing is, he could have just pulled it right off as soon as he got to Darling Nikki and was like, "Oh no," and that would have been fine. And then he returned
the record and returned it to the store.
Yeah, he would have listened to it
Changed
for all
it to something else.
That's like the fourth song on the record or something. He wouldn't have had that much time invested. But beyond that, Purple Rain has the lyrics. And just to remind our viewers, this is at a time before it was easy to preview an album before buying it. No internet, no listening stations, no nothing like that. So, America. All right, here we go.
Buyer beware.
And it gives
Yes.
the youngster who's going to buy his own record a chance to see what's in it, and he can look at those words and he can decide, do I want to take this home or not? And, how important is it for me to have this right now? And the parent can see it for the youngster who is not old enough to make those decisions, or the parent is buying the record for the child. And eventually, the youngster is going to get to the age where he can make his own decisions, and then you hope some of this has rubbed off along the way, such as many other issues that a youngster... I don't think you can put a chronological age to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So she's kind of copping out to any age. Is this really about children? Well,
then what are we talking about? You're protecting them from something, and at some point you're going to have to let them go. What time? Children. What is the age bracket you're talking about? 8?
Some are ready to make their own decisions at 15, some at 16, and some never are.
Actually, what you really say.
and some, I almost got her point till she said, and some never are. We're almost done here.
Okay.
The parents are making the decisions for them, I think, because if kids would make the decision to buy this music, I think it would be at a different age than their parents would deem it acceptable.
But they don't buy the records because of the words. Most of the people in the younger age bracket buy it because of the tune or the beat, because they're dancing to it. They're not reciting.
That's why it's so dangerous.
Excuse me, folks. I wish that we could continue to dance.
That's why it's so dangerous, I think. Oh, Jim.
I understand his argument, but I don't agree.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like the reprogramming camps we were talking about earlier.
Oh, God. Yeah.
All right, see if we can wrap this thing.
Yes, we can't. We're out of time. Please stay with us. We'll be right back with the Scooby Mailbag. Tonight on the censorship of rock lyrics was certainly an exciting and heated one.
Oh, yes.
But the final decision on whether or not albums are labeled explicit lyrics parental advisory rests with you, the public. So what do you think? Should recording companies set up a voluntary censorship board in conjunction with their artists? Or is it truly an infringement of First Amendment rights and creative expression?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So, thoughts?
The common theme to a lot of these shows seems to be, should the parents have to get involved and listen to the music that their kids are listening to, or should they hire somebody somewhere, who knows where, to make the decision for them? Steve Snyder argued that responsibility falls on the parents, and that you really have to get involved if you're gonna make decisions like that.
That's a good point. It's tough being a parent. I understand that. Maybe it's just the overwhelming amount of things you have to worry about as a parent. I don't know. I still can't fathom why Al Gore was so adamantly opposed to listening or exploring the album if he was concerned about his kid. Yeah, I mean,
who's better qualified to determine what your children listen to, you or somebody in some government office who's made some kind of insane legislation? You think maybe you're better qualified as a parent?
When you're talking about media and what's going to get exposed to everybody, can do this job for themselves. They can take care of their children. I'm not going to wager a guess as to why these types of bills show up from time to time, or not bills, but these types of issues show up from time to time. And it just feels lazy or something.
Yeah.
It feels a little entitled.
Yeah.
It feels like a first world issue. And it feels like for all of that, the consequences could be dire. I mean, it worked out pretty well as it turned out. But again, perhaps it washed out some artists before they were really ready for prime time. Who knows? Who knows how it may have changed the music business in terms of what we got to hear. Frankly, today, I'm not too impressed with the music business. I couldn't tell you for sure if this particular fork in the road brought down the quality of music, but honestly, I kind of suspect that maybe it did, but maybe not. I think that the people that created art back then that really has stood the test of time are the people that didn't worry about the PMRC or how the music was going to be received. They just went ahead and did what they felt they needed to do as artists and put it out. I mean, I listened to Night Prowler on many occasions, and I've never killed anybody. So
Right.
I don't know what to tell you. Am I lazy?
I think one unintended consequence, of course, which is obvious, is that the stickers kind of helped sell some albums.
Yeah, I love that.
So was the whole purpose defeated anyway?
Well, it's funny. Our friend Jim in this last broadcast showed us that they probably knew about that, and yet they persisted to create this label to give the appearance that they had done something positive, even though they knew.
Isn't this called the tail wagging the dog or something? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so pretty wild times the 80s were, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Not.